Adolf Hitler was an Austrian-born German politician who was the dictator of Germany during the Nazi era, which lasted from 1933 until his suicide in 1945. He rose to power as the leader of the Nazi Party, becoming the Chancellor of Germany in 1933 and then taking the title of Führer und Reichskanzler in 1934. Germany's invasion of Poland on the 1st of September, 1939 under his leadership marked the outbreak of the Second World War. Throughout the ensuing conflict, Hitler was closely involved in the direction of German military operations as well as the perpetration of the Holocaust, the genocide of about 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Hitler was born in Braunau in Austria-Hungary and moved to Germany in 1913. He was decorated during his service in the German army in the First World War, receiving the Iron Cross. In 1919, he joined the German Workers' Party, the precursor of the Nazi Party, and in 1921, was appointed the leader of the Nazi Party. In 1923, he attempted to seize governmental power in a failed coup in Munich and was sentenced to 5 years in prison, serving just over a year. While there, he dictated the first volume of his autobiography and political manifesto Mein Kampf. After his early release in 1924, he gained popular support by attacking the Treaty of Versailles as well as promoting pan-Germanism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism with charismatic oratory and Nazi propaganda. He frequently denounced communism as being part of an international Jewish conspiracy. By November 1932, the Nazi Party held the most seats in the Reichstag, but not a majority. Former Chancellor Franz von Papen and other conservative politicians convinced President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor on the 30th of January, 1933. Shortly thereafter, on the 23rd of March, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act of 1933, which ultimately began the Weimar Republic's transformation into Nazi Germany. Upon Hindenburg's death on the 2nd of August, 1934, Hitler replaced him as head of state and thereafter transformed Germany into a totalitarian dictatorship. Domestically, Hitler implemented numerous racist policies and sought to deport or kill German Jews. His first 6 years in power resulted in rapid economic recovery from the Great Depression, the abrogation of restrictions imposed on Germany after the First World War, and the annexation of territories inhabited by millions of ethnic Germans, which initially gave him significant popular support. One of Hitler's key goals was Lebensraum for the German people in Eastern Europe, and his aggressive, expansionist foreign policy is considered the primary cause of World War II in Europe. On the 1st of September, 1939, Hitler oversaw the German invasion of Poland, thereby causing Britain and France to declare war on Germany. After ordering an invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, he declared war on the United States in December of the same year. By the end of 1941, German forces and the European Axis powers occupied most of Europe and North Africa. These gains were gradually reversed after 1941 until the Allied forces defeated the German military in 1945. On the 29th of April, 1945, Hitler married his longtime partner, Eva Braun, in the Führerbunker in Berlin. They committed suicide the next day to avoid capture by the Soviet Red Army. The historian and biographer Ian Kershaw described Hitler as the embodiment of modern political evil. Under Hitler's leadership and racist ideology, the Nazi regime was responsible for the genocide of an estimated 6 million Jews and millions of other victims, whom he and his followers deemed unto-mention or socially undesirable. Hitler and the Nazis were also responsible for the deliberate killing of an estimated 19.3 million civilians and prisoners of war. In addition, 28.7 million soldiers and civilians died as a result of military action in the European theater. In August 1914, at the outbreak of World War I, Hitler was living in Munich and voluntarily enlisted in the Bavarian army. According to a 1924 report by the Bavarian authorities, allowing Hitler to serve was most likely an administrative error because as an Austrian citizen, he should have been returned to Austria. Posted to the Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment 16, he served as a dispatch runner on the Western Front in France and Belgium, spending nearly half his time at the regimental headquarters in Fontaine-Wepps, well behind the front lines. In 1914, he was present at the First Battle of Ypres and in that year was decorated for bravery, receiving the Iron Cross, second class. During the war, he was saved by his commanding officer, Fritz Weidmann, who pulled Hitler out of the rubble of a collapsed building while under heavy fire. During his service at headquarters, Hitler pursued his artistic interests, drawing cartoons and providing instructions for an army newspaper. During the Battle of the Somme in October 1916, he was wounded in the left thigh when a shell exploded in the dispatch runner's dugout. Hitler spent almost 2 months recovering in hospital at Belitz, returning to his regiment on the 5th of March, 1917. He was present at the Battle of Arras of 1917 and the Battle of Passchendaele. He received the Black Wound Badge on the 18th of May, 1918. 3 months later, in August 1918, on a recommendation by Lieutenant Hugo Gutmann, his Jewish superior, Hitler received the Iron Cross, First Class, a decoration rarely awarded at Hitler's Gefreiter rank. On the 15th of October, 1918, he was temporarily blinded in a mustard gas attack and was hospitalized in Pacewalk. While there, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and, by his own account, suffered a second bout of blindness after receiving this news. In August 1934, Hitler appointed Reichsbank President Hjalmar Schacht as Minister of Economics, and in the following year, as plenipotentiary for war economy in charge of preparing the economy for war. Reconstruction and rearmament were financed through MEFO bills, printing money, and seizing the assets of people arrested as enemies of the state, including Jews. The number of unemployed fell from 6 million in 1932 to fewer than 1 million in 1936. Hitler oversaw one of the largest infrastructure improvement campaigns in German history, leading to the construction of dams, autobahns, railroads, and other civil works. Wages were slightly lower in the mid to late 1930s compared with wages during the Weimar Republic, while the cost of living increased by 25%. The average workweek increased during the shift to a war economy. By 1939, the average German was working between 47 and 50 hours a week. Hitler's government sponsored architecture on an immense scale. Albert Speer, instrumental in implementing Hitler's classicist reinterpretation of German culture, was placed in charge of the proposed architectural renovations of Berlin. Despite a threatened multination boycott, Germany hosted the 1936 Olympic Games. Hitler officiated at the opening ceremonies and attended events at both the Winter Games in Garmisch-Partenkirchen and the Summer Games in Berlin. In a meeting with German military leaders on 3 February 1933, Hitler spoke of conquest for Lebensraum in the East and its ruthless Germanization as his ultimate foreign policy objectives. In March, Prince Bernhard Wilhelm von Bülow, secretary at the Foreign Office, Auswärtiges Amt, issued a statement of major foreign policy aims. Anschluss with Austria, the restoration of Germany's national borders of 1914, rejection of military restrictions under the Treaty of Versailles, the return of the former German colonies in Africa, and a German zone of influence in Eastern Europe. Hitler found Bülow's goals to be too modest. In speeches during this period, he stressed what he termed the peaceful goals of his policies and a willingness to work within international agreements. At the first meeting of his cabinet in 1933, Hitler prioritized military spending over unemployment relief. Germany withdrew from the League of Nations and the World Disarmament Conference in October 1933. In January 1935, over 90% of the people of the Saarland, then under League of Nations administration, voted to unite with Germany. That March, Hitler announced an expansion of the Wehrmacht to 600,000 members, 6 times the number permitted by the Versailles Treaty, including development of an air force, Luftwaffe, and an increase in the size of the Navy, Kriegsmarine. Britain, France, Italy, and the League of Nations condemned these violations of the treaty but did nothing to stop it. The Anglo-German Naval Agreement, AGNA, of the 18th of June allowed German tonnage to increase to 35% of that of the Royal Navy. Hitler called the signing of the AGNA the happiest day of his life, believing that the agreement marked the beginning of the Anglo-German alliance he had predicted in Mein Kampf. France and Italy were not consulted before the signing, directly undermining the League of Nations and setting the Treaty of Versailles on the path towards irrelevance. Germany reoccupied the demilitarized zone in the Rhineland in March 1936, in violation of the Versailles Treaty. Hitler also sent troops to Spain to support Francisco Franco and his nationalist faction during the Spanish Civil War after receiving an appeal for help in July 1936. At the same time, Hitler continued his efforts to create an Anglo-German alliance. In August 1936, in response to a growing economic crisis caused by his rearmament efforts, Hitler ordered Göring to implement a 4-year plan to prepare Germany for war within the next 4 years. The plan envisaged an all-out struggle between Judeo-Bolshevism and German Nazism, which in Hitler's view required a committed effort of rearmament regardless of the economic costs. In October 1936, Count Galeazzo Ciano, foreign minister of Mussolini's government, visited Germany, where he signed a 9-point protocol as an expression of rapprochement and had a personal meeting with Hitler. On the 1st of November, Mussolini declared an axis between Germany and Italy. On the 25th of November, Germany signed the Antikomintern Pact with Japan. Britain, China, Italy, and Poland were also invited to join the Antikomintern Pact, but only Italy signed in 1937. Hitler abandoned his plan of an Anglo-German alliance, blaming inadequate British leadership. At a meeting in the Reich Chancellery with his foreign ministers and military chiefs that November, Hitler restated his intention of acquiring Lebensraum for the German people. He ordered preparations for war in the East to begin as early as 1938 and no later than 1943. In the event of his death, the conference minutes, recorded as the Hossbach Memorandum, were to be regarded as his political testament. He felt that a severe decline in living standards in Germany as a result of the economic crisis could only be stopped by military aggression aimed at seizing Austria and Czechoslovakia. Hitler urged quick action before Britain and France gained a permanent lead in the arms race. In early 1938, in the wake of the Blomberg-Fritsch affair, Hitler asserted control of the military foreign policy apparatus, dismissing Neurath as foreign minister and appointing himself as war minister. From early 1938 onwards, Hitler was carrying out a foreign policy ultimately aimed at war.